So I'm probably pruning heavier than I have to, but that's fine with a guava. What's up guys, and welcome to another episode of El Jardín Perdido. Today we're doing a spring cleanup. All right, so we're a few weeks out of a pretty rough freeze. I did a video on that. Wasn't totally a killer, but it's enough that I can see what I can prune now. Things have died back a little bit, and we're just gonna do a little cleanup around the yard. A lot of the bananas, luckily I don't have to chop down to the ground, but some of their foliage, I do need to kind of clean things up, make sure they're not kind of a fire hazard or anything like that. And so I might be doing a little bit of weeding too, getting some beds ready, maybe pulling some stuff out of the greenhouse, but I just wanted to bring you guys along with me, prune some stuff. You can see any kind of damage that the yard has suffered from, but all in all, it's actually not too bad. All right, so we'll start with the bananas behind me. I like to use a combination of either the machete or maybe just a normal little hand saw like that. It just depends. But what I'm doing is kind of feeling how far I have to go. These are Pisang Kalang. They're a little more sensitive. I'm just going kind of halfway. And even if they're dead down to the bottom, they'll still prevail and kind of come up. But that looks pretty good here. From there, I can either mulch in place or go over it again with a lawnmower. I'll probably mow the leaves off of it and then chop things back. So I'm just gonna kind of make piles in front. This one's a little thinner, so I'm gonna go all the way to the ground. A little side note with bananas, the heart of the banana, kind of like the heart of a palm, kind of like the fruit, the lifeline of a banana was in the end stages of giving fruit. Say it already put off bananas, or the fruit is towards, ready to come out, that flower. If you cut that, then it's done. It'll die back completely, kind of as if it already gave fruit. So when I can help it, I don't think any of these are fruiting. They're not very mature. So I could just cut them all to the ground. If they're a little more mature, I like having that little head start when they're a little more mature. So if I can help it, I don't cut them all the way to the ground because of that. So we're just gonna go through here. And a lot of this is just for aesthetic and cleaning up. A lot of this will be really nice biomass too. All right, so I've got quite a bit on the ground here. Like I said, I'm probably gonna just mulch with the lawnmower later. And what I do is I pretty much mow the leaves, because if you try to mow the trunks, there's moisture, it'll get all kind of caught up and it doesn't do very well. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So that I'll probably chop with a machete. If you can see a little further back, all that is katuk. It's definitely toast. So that's gonna be one of the things that I'll be hand pruning. And basically I'm just going around the yard and kind of tending to things like that. I can also, I should have harvested more. I did harvest some before the freeze. I can throw that and get it mulched up, recycle it back into the land as well. So I'm just chopping this katuk pretty much all the way down. It'll bounce back really quick. Here's about half of it. We have the similar situation here. We have katuk that pretty much is dead to the ground, so we're gonna clean all that up too. All right. And taking a look at the blueberry, everything's pretty good. I'm not gonna mess with that. I can see its growing habit wants to come out this way. Maybe out of the sun. Maybe it's been getting a little bit too much sun, even though it's partially shaded here. Okay, behind me I have cassava, and I did a scratch test earlier, but what you want to do is scratch it and see where things are dyed back. So cut above where it's green. I'm gonna throw that in the pile too. You can see where it's a little thicker and towards the ground. Still living. And anything else, we're just gonna, you can even cut back into the living part a little bit if need be. This stuff will shoot right up even if you cut it down to the ground. Makes it a lot easier to get to some other stuff too. We have a little papaya here. It's basically down to the root, but it'll be back. Technically with papaya, when it's young like that, it'll pretty much just shrivel up the dead part and eventually just grow back from the root or wherever it froze to. Okay, and we have a little more katuk here. I'm just gonna cut that all the way down. Makes this bed a lot easier to work with. I also have some new plants, tomatoes and stuff, that I'll be utilizing some of these beds for later. This is one of my beds that survived through the winter. Brassicas, cabbage, kale, Swiss chard, some leeks. Did well, fared very well. Okay, not much to deal with here, just one banana. And we're gonna take that down. Probably just mulch right in place like that. I do have looks to be a mulberry that's starting to sprout that I don't really need here. I have tons of mulberries. So I'm gonna cut that way down. And I'm really just gonna use that as chop and drop. Whenever it wants to come up, I'll just keep chopping it, using it for biomass, keeping it low. I have another young papaya here. I can feel it's very firm at the bottom. So we're just gonna go a few inches above that. Cut in place. Just taking care of this while I see it, but some of the weeds right here and another thing to note this year is there are quite a bit of weeds popping up right now that it's spring. A lot of dandelions and stuff in my paths, and I'm gonna keep them. This one, only because I forget what this is called. It's very sticky, it's all over the place. Comes up really easily. It just pops up this time of year, but it's not a super pain in the butt. But I do wanna plant stuff over there, and I don't want it suffocated by how much growth that has, and that's the only reason I'm pulling that out. But clover, stuff like that, I'm gonna leave them, especially because I did a previous video, my bees left. They got smoked out, they had pest damage, and I'm trying to invite a colony back in here. I got lucky a few years ago and one literally showed up my front window right next to my front door, literally. A swarm came there. I did see a scout bee. Today earlier, I relocated my hive and kind of sprayed a little something in there, some pheromones to attract a new colony because it's almost swarming season. So fingers crossed on that. I used to have it in the shade thinking that was good, but turns out in Texas, you want high heat because the bees can cool themselves off by fanning, but pests can't deal with the high heat. So you actually want them in full sun. Here I was thinking the bees needed some shade and protection. We're not doing that this year. So, all right, let's see what else we have to clean up here. All right, we have some more bananas to clean up. This is that scenario I was talking about where if their trunks are pretty undamaged, we're basically just chopping off the top portion because some of these may actually be bearing fruit soon. So I think it'll be a good year for bananas because I think, fingers crossed, especially after all this work, it's the end of February, kind of mid towards the end of February, hoping that we don't get any more hard freezes. That would be a pity if we did, but if we don't, it's a great year for bananas because we didn't get a hard freeze. Especially not good, have the fire hazard. I got a new grill here. It's not great to have all that really dry canopy hanging down next to the grill, so time to clean up. I don't know how much you guys could see in that video, but the fig's out of control too. That's something else we'll be taking care of. It hasn't budded yet. It's getting really close though, but I'll probably get the pole saw for that. But let's continue on. All right, if you look at my last video on the guava and how I protected it, you'll see that it did better than it did in the last couple years, but we're already getting some growth. But I do need to prune back in certain areas too. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to show you guys, now that it's spring, we do have some chickies that hatched, and we have a bunch more in my little makeshift brooder over here. I'll show you in a minute. So for the guava, we're gonna observe. We can also do a combination with scratch testing, but I can see about right there. Other parts of it, you'll see foliage. Guava is really forgiving with pruning. In fact, it's encouraged to prune heavily because it'll actually put out a lot more fruit. I can see some buds here. Just kind of doing a scratch test, making my way down. So I'm probably pruning heavier than I have to, but that's fine with a guava. Other indicators, you can see we have green growth, we have some budding, basically just cutting above where the budding is, making it a little more aesthetically appealing. I like doing this because it wipes the slate clean of the trauma of the freezes. Honestly, this year I didn't panic much. It wasn't as big a deal, but when the yard looks demolished, I do like coming in here and cleaning up, because it's kind of like a fresh start, clean slate, clean canvas, and it's as though you can forget that everything just got killed. This one I'm probably cutting back more than I need to, but that's fine. Get that fresh start. Guavas like being pruned. And I'd say it fared pretty well considering. Guavas are pretty sensitive. Only because I'm here and it's dormant. Every time I walk this path, this che fruit wants to take me out. So I'm just pruning accordingly, encouraging upward growth. It fruited pretty well last year. Even this one, I'm gonna go ahead and cut there. Some of these lower ones might get that. Che fruit, especially this one, they just grow wherever they want. They're crazy. You'll just get really crazy branching, really long, lanky, gnarly ones. So they can use a good prune. Hopefully the fruit's a little better this year. Last year it was still astringent. Supposedly after a few years it gets a little better. But yeah, mainly for me, there's some pretty high ones. I like keeping some of the high branches in case we do have a lot of birds now, a varying culture here. So I like to let them pick off the top, you know. if it's all low, they're more likely to pick off the fruit that you'd be eating. So yeah, I encourage the canopy to be a few feet above what you'd normally eat from. This pomegranate, this is more of just, it's in my way with this path and keeps tugging at my hair when I walk by. That was part of the shade right there. So we're just keeping the path clear here. Might be a good year of fruit for this. Sometimes when we get these freezes, it's just enough damage to get the pomegranates a little bit. So yeah, nice clear path. Looking good on that front. Okay, just so I don't bore you guys, I have a lot of bananas and I'm probably not gonna go show you me cutting all those. At this point, I'm just kind of, things that are dormant, I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little trimmy trim. I'm looking at my peach right now. So the peach, everything's pretty much retained from last year pretty well. My only thing is not letting it get too out of control on that side. If you can see on the camera, let me back up a little. This side's quite a bit higher. It looks like it's reaching for sunlight because it's a little bit shaded out by the jujube. The jujube I cut back because it was like throwing its canopy this way. So it's kind of like a little balancing act, but I'm encouraging more growth that way. And hopefully it doesn't impede with the pear over there. That's why they say to put your fruit trees a good 15, 20 feet apart, whereas these might be like 5 to 8. A little bit crowded here, but that's okay. Really with this, I just want to keep an open center. It's on its second year, so I really don't want to be too aggressive with it. I think really, I'm just gonna take off this top part that's a little out of control. Just right here, just kind of evening things out. So maybe right here. Make sure I get a nice clean cut. Always notch at both sides. A little messy. Looks like one of my grafts didn't take. I'm gonna prune that while I'm here. Anything growing too much on the inside, no, it's pretty open. I'm not gonna worry about it. Most of that branch was off camera, but significant amount. I've done formal videos of pruning, especially stone fruit, but one thing to note is even when it's dormant, you don't want to prune too much more than like 35, 40%. Really just 25 is usually fine. Keep up with it every year, you should be okay. I did, maybe that'll be a future video, a very soon future before things start breaking buds, but I did want to make this a multi-graft too and take a bunch of the multi-grafts from the front yard and make insurance here. So that's something I might do. When I first put it in, it was barely a candidate for that because there wasn't a lot of branching. I may wait till next year, but there's a chance I might do it this year. Now that I'm spotting this is another mulberry. I'm just gonna take it way down. It gets in the way in my path. I didn't plant it. It just gets here and I just use it for biomass. While I'm here, I have some papayas. Actually, this is a perfect opportunity to show you what I was saying. You can look at the previous video about frost protecting these, and basically I protected them about a foot up, and you can see that very clearly. But this is what I was talking about, how they'll naturally kind of cinch themselves off. All this dies back. This is the live part. It's very firm and it'll basically wither down to nothing. So I'm just going to cut it right above that, make it a little easier for the papaya to deal with that. If we look over here, this is a similar situation. Right about here is where it's solid. I'll probably cut it right there. So let's stay true to what we were talking about. We'll mow that down later. And we'll take care of all those bananas off camera. So this papaya probably starts getting weird about there. And I'm just gonna mow this up too later. If you guys will excuse the mess, I was running around like crazy because we had a thunderstorm last night. I was protecting the new brood that I just put together. Basically, I had all these little hatchlings up in the carport in an aquarium, but it was getting kind of hot for that. And I wanted some better ventilation. And so I brought them out here, and then the temperature dipped and it started pouring last night. So I just did what I could. But you know, since I'm teasing you guys with baby chickies, I'll go ahead and show you. So this is our setup here. I have one in the aquarium right here, and then I have the majority, I don't know how well you can see that with the exposure, but the majority of them are in here, faring well. All right guys, well I've got my work cut out for me. I just wanted to kind of walk you through the gist of what I was doing. I do want to take out my plants. I have a bunch of wood chips I plan on mulching. After I kind of cut things back, I'm gonna mulch with the biomass that I have, add some additional wood chips, and I'll also be planting a few things. As far as the fig, I'm gonna take that way down. And I have a few things in the front yard that I'll be doing some similar pruning to. But yeah, that's the gist of it. All right guys, well that's gonna do it for today's video. As always, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.